If you work in university maintenance, Granger considers you an MVP because your playbook ensures your arena is always ready for tip-off. And Granger is your trusted partner, offering the products you need all in one place, from HVAC and plumbing supplies to lighting and more. And all delivered with plenty of time left on the clock, so your team always gets the win. Call 1-800-GRANGER, visit Granger.com, or just stop by. Granger, for the ones who get it done. If you work in university maintenance, Granger considers you an MVP because your playbook ensures your arena is always ready for tip-off. And Granger is your trusted partner, offering the products you need all in one place, from HVAC and plumbing supplies to lighting and more. And all delivered with plenty of time left on the clock, so your team always gets the win. Call 1-800-GRANGER, visit Granger.com, or just stop by. Granger, for the ones who get it done.
Welcome back. Thank you for checking out this bonus edition of the 12 Kyle podcast. I'm 12 Kyle. Check this out. What I want to do in this podcast is recap a monumental event that recently happened to me and my family. On December 11th, 2021, our oldest son, our oldest child, the firstborn, our son Deion graduated from college. He graduated from Alabama A&M University. And so I want to just kind of take you back because it's been roughly about a month now since graduation. So kind of had a chance to settle in and collect my thoughts. It goes without saying that I'm extremely proud, super, super proud of Deion. And, one, him accomplishing a goal, and then two, accomplishing the goal of graduating from college. Because I know, just from my own personal experience, it's not easy. Getting to college is one thing, graduating is something totally different. But let's go back. As I mentioned, he graduated on December 10th. Did I say the 11th? December 10th. I think I said the 11th. Anyway, he graduated on December 10th, 2021. And something interesting happened the day before he graduated. If you were unaware, I celebrated my 49th birthday the day before his graduation. So that was something special in and of itself. If you follow the podcast, you know that, I've come around on, having celebratory moments on my birthday, but, it's a big deal to me, but I've never tried to make it a big deal for everybody else. But I got a lot of love on my birthday, a lot of phone calls, text messages, tweets, Facebook posts, people just reaching out on IG, social media, the whole nine. I heard from a couple of people that I hadn't heard from in a while. So that was always good to hear from them. Just friends just showing love. And I appreciate that. Anybody that took the time out to, wish me a happy birthday, particularly my 49th, because you're only a year away from the big 50. It's special. And I'll be honest, as I get older and as I've gotten older, particularly these last, few years, I've learned to really, really appreciate it, because outside of it being something important and special to me, the reality is, not a lot of people get to see these ages that we're touching each year. So, while I don't quote unquote feel 49, I definitely don't look like somebody who's 49, but, I'm thankful. I'm thankful, and I'm truly, truly blessed. So if you did reach out to me, I'm pretty sure I told you thank you, but let me just say again for the last time, thank you again for all of the birthday wishes. The birthday was pretty low key. Didn't really do too much. Didn't even really, I think I did have a cake, a slice of cake. I think, yeah, I did. I had like a little dessert, but I ended up, because graduation was the next day, we ended up spending, most of the day. Well, not most of the day, a couple hours. It's like a 4-hour drive from Atlanta, where I live, to Huntsville, Alabama, where Alabama A&M is. So drove to Huntsville which was a pretty cool ride. I actually drove with my in-laws, my daughter Skylar and my niece. We drove, and then my wife, she rode up because our youngest son Brandon had a basketball game that night. He didn't want to miss his basketball game, so she rode up with my brother-in-law, our other son Cameron, and our youngest son Brandon. And of course Deion was already in Huntsville. But it was cool. It was cool. We got to Huntsville, and we ended up going out to dinner for my birthday. And my dad was following me in his car along with my niece. And so, I got a chance to go out to dinner and spend, dinner with my in-laws and my father and my nieces, which was pretty cool, and my daughter. So it was pretty cool. And, I thought that was really, really dope. And Deion came by the hotel and saw him, and, he was, he was kind of settling into the idea of graduation, but I could kind of tell just from conversations that we had leading up to graduation, he was pretty stressed out. If you follow the podcast, that we went to LA for a week for Thanksgiving. And so, I know he and I talked during that time, and I told him, I was like, hey, just enjoy this, because, you'll never experience it like this again. And I just told him, just to try to soak up the moment. And, but I could tell, it's the, getting this grade right, or getting this paper turned in and all of that stuff like that, plus the outside stuff. So I just wanted to make sure that, he was cool with the process. There was, because of COVID, there was a limitation on the number of tickets he could have. So he only had 20 tickets. And so, we were there, and then my mom and my two aunts were driving up from South Carolina the next day. Well, actually, they drove here to Atlanta, spent the night here in Atlanta, and then drove up to Huntsville the next morning. So my biggest thing was like, I was telling my mom, like, y'all got to leave at this time. You got to get out of Atlanta traffic, and you got to get to Huntsville, because, I don't want you being there late, because we were all obviously trying to sit together and everything like that. But the birthday was cool. Like I said, got a chance to have dinner with them, and that was cool. It was low key, real low key. Like I said, just the text messages and phone calls and stuff like that was enough for me. So I was cool with that. Then we flipped the calendar to December 10th, which was graduation day. Now, before we got graduation day started, we had to obviously shout out the birthday boy, because my birthday is on December 9th, and our youngest son, Brandon, his birthday is on December 10th. He actually turned 15 on that day. So we, woke up at the hotel, because my wife and them, they got in a little bit later. They got in around, I guess, 11, 12, something like that. And, we just sang happy birthday and, shouted him out, gave him his gifts or whatever. So that was cool. The other thing that was on my mind that I had no control over was the fact that and graduation was outside in Louis Cruz Stadium on the campus of Alabama A&M University. Because graduation was outside, I wasn't so much worried about COVID, but the forecast was for rain. I checked the weather like 1,000 times in the days leading up to graduation. Now, here's the cool part about it. The forecast was like for 70 degrees, but it was supposed to rain. And, we kept looking at it and looking at the Weather Channel and looking at the timing. And we thought that we might get a little wet. And then, they said that, you can't bring in big umbrellas. You can bring in a small umbrella, but you couldn't bring a big umbrella into the stadium or what have you. So we're like, oh man, this will suck if it rains at graduation. But that was my biggest concern. Well, that was a concern, and my mom and my aunts getting to Huntsville on time. Like I was just like, look, y'all need to be here by 11. We're going into the stadium. Now keep in mind, graduation didn't start until 1:00. But I spoke with my mom, earlier that morning, and they got on the road on time and they got out of Atlanta traffic. So I was cool. And then when she called me, she was like, hey, I'm pulling into the stadium parking lot. And I was like, okay, great. And so they got there, they got to the stadium right around the same time we did. Funny thing, me and my family, everybody in our graduation party, we were the first people in the stadium. There was nobody else in the stadium but us. I mean, like there was some, the graduates were getting there, but we basically got to the stadium the same time the graduates did. And I know that, even though Deion didn't admit it, his biggest thing was like, he kept asking, was like, okay, well, when is grandma going to get here? I was like, grandma will be there in the morning. And he was talking about my mom, and, my wife's mom was already there because she, like I said, she rode with us, but he was just worried about, I guess everybody being there on time, but we were there. We were there early. Again, we were the first people in the stadium. Like we were walking through security, and security was like, oh, you guys are the first people here. So we sat down, we had a perfect view of the field and everything. We got, very close and everything. So that was dope. And then, obviously people started coming in, and, then the graduation was about to start. Now, interesting thing about graduation was at Alabama A&M, it was the commencement speaker was the president. The president at that particular time, because he retired on December 31st, 2021, his last active duty for Alabama A&M was to give the commencement speech, and that was President Andrew Hugheny. Now, if you're familiar, Andrew Hugheny also was the president at South Carolina State University, which is where my wife and I went to school. And little known fact, Andrew Hugheny was actually my academic advisor at one point at South Carolina State University. So when Deion decided to go to Alabama A&M University, honestly, I didn't know anybody there. Like the only person I knew was Dr. Hugheny. And, interestingly enough, their paths crossed when Deion was there, and he got a chance to say, hey, this is my dad, this is my mom. And Dr. Hugheny surprisingly remembered. Well, I mean, I'm not hard to forget, but you get my point. But yeah, Dr. Hugheny, who I think very highly of, I think he had been at Alabama A&M for 13 or 14 years. He was retiring at the end of the year, end of the semester. So he gave the commencement speech. And about halfway through his speech, it started raining. And then you just hear this groan over the crowd because like everybody's like, oh, here we go. And the graduates, they all had ponchos. They put the ponchos on. We broke out our umbrellas, and we were all covered. And we didn't have big umbrellas, but almost everybody had an umbrella. And it rained for maybe a minute or two, and then it kind of drizzled after that. But it wasn't like a hard rain. It's just, it just rained, and then it stopped. And then halfway through the commencement speech, it stopped altogether. And I realized something, like, it really wouldn't have mattered if it had been pouring down rain. It probably rained for the better part of, it probably rained and drizzled for the better part of 10 minutes. But to be honest, if I'm being honest with y'all, it could have snowed out there. I didn't feel nothing. I had my suit on. I was solely focused on my child, and again, I can't really express the level of pride and joy that I had, watching him, graduate. And what was interesting is, like, when the graduates walked in onto the field, I saw him, which was funny to me because Deion, during his time there, he was a member of the band, the Marching Maroon and White at Alabama A&M, and he played the trombone. And anytime I saw them perform, I could never find him on the field. Never. When they played in the stands, I could see him, no problem. But And if you're familiar with HBCU bands, you know that they move around and high stepping and dancing and all this stuff like that. I could never find him on the field. I mean, like, it got to a point where sometimes I'd just be like, all right, well, I'll see him when he comes off the field. Cause like, I couldn't find him because almost everybody looks the same in the trombones and move around, all this stuff like that. And there's a whole bunch of people on the band. So, but I immediately spotted him when he walked onto the field. And, you know, I thought I was going to get choked up and start crying. I didn't, you know, because I was still at that particular time worried about rain. But I had a moment. I had a moment where I looked out there and I saw him, and then it kind of there was like a flash of light. And I don't know if this is something I actually saw or if it's something that I envisioned. It was really clear, and I kind of blacked out for a second. And it took the flash happened, and then I saw Deion at, what was that, 5? I think he was 5, and we were dropping him off at school for the first time. And I just remember him walking ahead of us, like eager to go to school. And he just kept looking back at us and smiling, and looking back at us and smiling. And my wife, Cherie, she was crying. And I just, you know, I was just proud of my boy, you know, because he was a big boy. He was going to school at 5. And I'll be honest with y'all, like, having that moment of thinking about and really envisioning him at 5 going to school for the first time, and then now seeing him at the age of 22 graduating from college, like, I know that the time happened, but it seemed like yesterday. I mean, like, it literally feels like it just happened yesterday. Like, we just dropped him off at school for the first time. And then I started having all these thoughts about, you know, his first day at high school and him going to the prom. And then I thought about, you know, when we dropped him off at Alabama A&M. And I remember vividly when we visited Alabama A&M, and I didn't know that this is where he wanted to go to school. And we got halfway through the tour, and he was just like, yeah, he was like, this is where I'm going. And I was like, huh? He was like, yeah, this is where I'm going. It was weird because when he visited Alabama A&M, when he was a senior in high school, we planned to visit Alabama A&M. And then later that day, it was a Friday, so we were going to go to Alabama A&M, and then we're going to ride up to Nashville to visit Tennessee State, which was, I don't know, maybe another hour and a half away. And we had everything planned. And so we were we were doing a tour, walking around Alabama A&M. And if you've ever been to Alabama A&M, it is a beautiful campus, very picturesque, very hilly. They call it the hill for a reason. Like, you walk up and down these hills, like you'll get a workout for real. And we were halfway through the tour. We hadn't even seen most of the campus yet. And he was like, Mom, Dad, y'all need to cancel the visit to Nashville. And I was like, what do you mean? I was like, we got everything. We got it reserved, and we're going to stay in Nashville for the evening. He's like, nah. He's like, this is where I'm going. And I was like, you don't want to even see Tennessee State? He's like, nah. He's like, this is it. This is where I'm going to spend the next 4 years. And I looked at my wife, and she looked at me, and I just kind of threw my hands up. I was like, well, if he's made up his mind, this is where it is. So I started thinking about all of that stuff, and it just kind of hit me like, wow, this kid is actually graduating. And again, I know it wasn't easy. He graduated with honors, which, quite honestly, is a lot better than what his father did. But that's another story for a whole nother podcast. But yeah, I was and am extremely proud of Deion. Proud of all my kids, but I know it's not easy, particularly when you're the oldest. And that's something that Deion and I share in common, you know, being the oldest child. So you set the example for your brothers and your sister. And I know that that's not necessarily easy because, you know, that can be pressure on some people. But he's always handled it. He's always been a great big brother and always set a great example for them. And, you know, I couldn't have been prouder that particular day. And I'll be honest, I was literally on cloud nine that day, December 10th. And I can't say that I've come down. I can't. But yeah, so it was really, really cool. Graduation went fine. He graduated. We recorded it, yelled and stuff when he came across the stage. Because of COVID, they could not shake the president's hand, which is understandable. And he took his pictures and stuff, and the pictures came out really well. And that was it. And after graduation, we kind of just met him in the parking lot and took a bunch of pictures. And then so the plan was to, get something, get gas up and head on back to the A. And that's what we did. He was going to come back the next day, the 11th, which was a Saturday, for his graduation dinner. But he had some things to do in the dorm and everything to, straighten up and clear out before he had to leave. And so he was driving his car. So we all, drove back. My mom got lost. I don't know how she got lost, but she got behind. She was like kind of behind us, and she got lost once she crossed over into Georgia. Well, no, I can't say she got lost in Georgia. She got lost once she got to Atlanta. She got off on the wrong exit, and but she eventually made it to her hotel. And then so the Saturday, December 11th, that was the day of the graduation party. So it was going to be a busy day for us because Brandon had another basketball game. So we went to that basketball game. The graduation dinner was at this restaurant called, what is it called? Sage, I think. I think that's the name of it. Real nice restaurant. And, we were going to have 40 guests. So, that's tough to manage in and of itself, but props to Sharice for handling all of that. She made sure that everybody that RSVP'd and they got their orders in as far as what they wanted and everything like that. Everybody came, everybody from the graduation party, obviously. Some of his aunts came, my wife's aunts, my brother and his family came, my cousin, his family, Deion's godmother, Dr. Jamel, who you heard on this podcast. My man Mo is Deion's godfather, his family, some of his old teachers. It was a great event. It was a beautiful event. We spent a couple of hours in the restaurant. We ate. We toasted him right before we left, and that was beautiful. And then after the dinner, everybody came to my house. So we had probably about another, 30 people in the house, and the kids, all of my kids and my niece and nephews, and all of them were playing and singing songs and stuff, and they just really just having a good time. Me and my boy Mo was here, my boy Clark came over. We just sat around and just kicked it. It was my parents were here. It was just good just to have family around. And obviously it's just COVID time. So, we were still careful. But it was beautiful. If you know me, I'm all about family. So anytime I can be around my family, I feel good. And I love having those moments because seeing my kids with their cousins, that warms my heart because that's how I was with my cousins. I have cousins that are, cousins in name, but we're technically like brothers and sisters because we grew up together. So family is big for me. And so to have everybody at the crib, after dinner was really, really dope. And then my mom and my aunts and everybody, my dad and everybody, they came by Sunday morning before they left to go back to South Carolina. So it was a beautiful weekend. It was a beautiful weekend. Everybody got home safe. I just enjoyed the entire thing. I enjoyed, my family being there for him. I enjoyed, seeing the look on his face, with everybody being, of course he knew who all was coming, but, seeing him walking around, talking to everybody, hugging everybody and everything. His girlfriend was there. It was really, really special. And it was really special for me because both me and Sharice, because, we're parents. So, that these days will come, but you never know what they're going to look like. Right. So, that, okay, yeah, you take your kid to preschool one day, then you take them to first grade, then you take them to, the subsequent grades, and then you watch them graduate from high school, and you watch them graduate from college. And, Lord willing, one day you watch them get married. One day, maybe you'll watch them become parents and you become grandparents if we're, that lucky. And that all of these things will happen, but you just don't know what they're going to look like. And I couldn't help but, as I was sitting in that stadium watching graduation happen, I started thinking about like my graduation, because I graduated December 14th. He graduated December 10th. I graduated December 14th, 1996. And up until that day, that day that it happened, that was the happiest day of my life, hands down. Now, obviously, getting married and becoming a father, and each time that we had our children, those days kind of supersede graduating from college. But, I know how I felt December 14th, 1996. It was more of a, whoo, I made it. Whereas, Deion is, graduated with honor. And I don't want y'all to think I had bad grades. I didn't have bad grades. I just didn't have the grades that he had. I did okay, but I could have done better. We know why. But yeah, I never, as I was sitting there, listening to these kids' names being called out. One of the things that I found that I kind of reflected on was, at my graduation, again, December 14th, 1996, even up until now, I've never asked my parents how they felt that day. I for whatever reason, I know they were proud. I know they were happy. And I know they were relieved, but I never asked them how they felt. And I can honestly say, if they felt anything like I felt, and like how I have felt these subsequent days after graduation, man, listen, that's pretty damn good. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for checking out this bonus edition of the 12 Kyle podcast. I'm your boy, 12 Kyle. I'll catch you guys next time. 5.
When you manage procurement for multiple facilities, every order matters. But when it's for a hospital system, they matter even more. Grainger gets it and knows there's no time for managing multiple suppliers and no room for shipping delays. That's why Grainger offers millions of products in fast, dependable delivery, so you can keep your facility stocked, safe, and running smoothly. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done. When you manage procurement for multiple facilities, every order matters. But when it's for a hospital system, they matter even more. Grainger gets it and knows there's no time for managing multiple suppliers and no room for shipping delays. That's why Grainger offers millions of products in fast, dependable delivery, so you can keep your facility stocked, safe, and running smoothly. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.